Welcome to the Create What You Speak podcast. Join me as we have a real-life discussion on how to change your life by changing your thoughts. Remember, question everything, trust yourself, and find your truth. Welcome to the Create What You Speak podcast. My name is Sloan Fremont, and I'm your host. Today, joining me is Dave Moore. Dave is an author, a keynote speaker. He has survived 4 plane crashes, flew through 3 hurricanes while performing search and rescue with the Coast Guard, and has logged 39 combat missions in the Middle East. He's also the author of the book, Wake Up and Win, Take Your Life Off Autopilot. And when I saw your story, Dave, I knew I had to get you on the show. You're so inspirational. You have so much that you've went through. And I'd love to be able to talk today about how you came out of that on the other side and offer some inspiration and, some hope for the listeners. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sloan. Thanks for having me on here. So I do apologize for the dark room. I'm in the Vegas Convention Center, so we did our best here with the background, but just kind of a fun day. Absolutely. So 4 plane crashes. Nobody can deny that that's just ridiculous, right? I mean, there's certain milestones in life, I guess, if you're paying attention that, I never planned on being a motivational speaker, an inspirational speaker. I never even saw a motivational speaker, inspirational speaker, really, until I actually became one. And by the twists and turns of fate, it just wasn't something that was in my wheelhouse. I mean, we had people come in, but I never went out of my way to go and do that. So, talking about going into it, I mean, I end up 23 years old. I end up laying out in the middle of the woods on December 17th, 1997. It's the 94 years later to the first flight ever at Kitty Hawk. And I find myself, my face is ripped off. I mean, I'm laying in this airplane and I'm out in the middle of the woods with this doctor. And you can imagine, I'm not going to go through my first plane crash, the whole story, but it's like, I went from, I completely changed as a person. I mean, instantaneously like that. So I was given 3 reasons why I shouldn't be alive by the NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board. And when they leave it up to the universe, that's like when the U.S. government's like, I don't know, man, like there's no way you should be alive right now. And imagine that, Sloan. Imagine laying in a hospital and, these officials who you respect, the FAA, the NTSB are in there saying like, dude, just be dead. I mean, not that cool, but you're laying there, you're all bandaged up, like, you're like, okay, I don't know what to say, right? So you can imagine, and I laugh about it now, but it took me years. I'm talking 22 decades to really digest and overcome all this. And that's why I do the 3 C's of uncrashable leadership, because I don't expect anybody else to have to go out and crash 4 airplanes. It seems like every time I get off course, I get brought back on course. So I'm like, okay, because there's no doubt that Dave can do a lot. I've been successful in corporate America. Like, I have a lot of things I'm good at. And but it's obvious that I'm supposed to be speaking, and I'm tired of getting in crashes, so I'm just gonna stick with it, right?
So you're gonna stand on the stage and speak, right?
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was like, I used to always say that, all 3, I always thought there was gonna be a 3rd one, and the 3rd one was it, and blah blah blah. And I don't say anything anymore, because when that nose wheel came off of that 4th one, and we're skidding down the runway, like waiting to catch fire, I'm like, is this for real? Like, right.
By the 4th time, you have to be like, okay, universe, like, what do I need to know? Like, what's the deal here? Like, what's 4? This is the 4th time. I mean, that's crazy. That's just crazy.
It was, and it's not too long ago. And the funny, because I went through COVID like we all did, and my business went from here to just crashed. Yeah. But I did everything that I talk about, and I pivoted, and I was doing better. I mean, just not better, but I was doing very, very well. And then I got side focused with, these other things that I pivoted to, and the universe brought me right back with a 4th plane crash. I was like, oh yeah, COVID's over. I'm on it.
Right. Oh my gosh. So let's talk about that. You're speaking in what you mentioned, the 3 C's, and you're pivoting. So what do you like to talk? What do you like to share with people when you're talking?
Well, what I share with them is the 3 C's. So I call it crash, combat, and commit. Right. Mm-hmm. So the crash of life are going to come, and what do I mean by crash? It's the challenges that life throws at you, both big and small. I mean, there's way more to just crashing airplanes to Dave Moore. I mean, I've been through the struggles. I've lost a child. I've had to go through all these struggles, these normal struggles. It's just, who would think that crashing airplanes we could actually make fun of, where we don't want to sit and talk about, we all go through these struggles in life. It's part of life. And, it's funny because I was doing a show and somebody said, well, you're living this blessed life. And I said, well, that's because that's the way that you see it. That's the way that I see it. But, other people could see it as like a condemned life or a cursed life, where it's exactly, you create what you speak, you actually create. And I talk about, that you create your own personal, professional success. Absolutely.
Right.
And, so the crashes of life are going to come, big and small. And to help get through that, because after my first crash, like I talked about, I had post-traumatic stress. There's no doubt about it. I'll never say disorder. Who's going to come tell Dave that I have a disorder? And that's part of my spirit. And it's part of being an uncrashable leader. I say that an uncrashable leader is driven by growth. Look at me. I get all fired up. That's how much I love this stuff.
I can tell. I love it.
Yeah. And the second part is you have a fighting spirit, and you have to, because the world's a tough place, and you have to go out there, and you have to be willing to get into the tent with the bear and wrestle with it and roll around if you ever want to come out and really achieve everything that you can achieve. So the crashes of life, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say what you were talking about with, I can tell you have a defiance about you too, right? Like if somebody tells you you can't do this, it's like, just from the brief interaction, you're going to say, yeah, right. And I have a similar story to that. When I was in my mid-20s, I had a rare bone disorder in my foot, and I had to have surgery. They said the surgery was experimental. They didn't know if it was going to work. They told me I was never going to walk again. And I was like, yeah, right. That's not happening to me. Forget it. And I remember I was 2 months after that surgery. I don't even like running, but I was running on the treadmill because I wanted to prove to that doctor that what you tell me is not true. That is not happening to me. And after that, it's fine. Like it was a non-issue, but had I listened to those doctors who wanted to bring me down and tell me I couldn't do it. And I remember even my mom looking at me, like shaking her head and crying, like, I don't think you're going to be able to walk. And I'm like, well, that's not my story. Absolutely not. And it seems like you have that same spirit in you, where it's like, no, I'm not going to just because somebody tells me something doesn't mean that's the way my life has to go.
100%, Sloan. Thank you for that. That's why I love doing this, because I take from so many others. I mean, I was up speaking in front of, they were all CPAs. Because my background is so diverse, I relate to so many different people. I get to go to, and the guys like, and I'm talking about the positive mental attitude and just what you talked about.
Right.
And, I'm not talking about image boards and all this, like, I'm just talking about getting in the fight and saying, oh, post-traumatic stress, the psychiatrist got me in front of these light boards and I couldn't even tell my story. I'd shake like this. I mean, it was pretty traumatic, right?
Yeah.
And just like your event, never walking again is pretty traumatic. Right. But it's like you said, when people tell me, I love when people tell me what I can't do, because then it gives me the opportunity to show them what I can't do.
Right.
And, but just don't ever think that struggle was easy, because we're laughing about it now. But there was a point, I know that there was, successes like this. You're like, oh, and then the letdown, and then you're back up, and then the letdown, and it's that constant, because and this is getting into combat. So combating your crashes, I give a couple different ways that I was able to combat my crashes, like tools to fight these, because really it's a learning process that you have to learn of how I can approach this. There was a doctor who's written 13 books. I mean, this is his expertise. I'm the son of a postman from Pittsburgh. I'm 5'8" with my boots on. I wanted to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, right? And like I have no background, or I had no plans on going to medical school or doing anything like that. But I had to figure this stuff out, because everybody's telling me I have post-traumatic stress. Well, that's a bad thing, right? Because that stops you right there. But I talk about post-traumatic growth, and then I give you tools where that I had to learn, but it was my passion for aviation at the time that gave me that strength. Like it was your passion of Sloan was not willing not to be able to walk for the rest of her life. That was the end of the story.
I remember saying that is not acceptable to me. I told the doctor that, I told myself that every day. And like you're talking about it, again, we can laugh about it now, but in that case, I remember, having to crawl to go to the bathroom, right? Because I couldn't put pressure on my foot. I was on crutches for like probably close to that 2 months of like recovery. And, it was also that drive within myself, because in my case, nobody gave me there was no protocol. Nobody knew what to do because it was so rare. So I made my own protocol. I had no clue what I was doing. I felt my way through it. Well, I can do this today. I can move my foot this way today, or I can use the resistance band this way. Right. And I kept doing that. And I would go back to the doctor and he would say, "You're doing what?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is what I'm doing." I didn't have that frame of reference. And like you're talking about, when people tell you have something, not to like deny that, but most people tell you that you have something in a way that is not positive for you, right? It's not that, oh, you have this, but you can do this. You know what I mean? It's constantly like pushing down on you with what you have. And what I realized in my situation was there was nobody telling me what I should or shouldn't do, because nobody knew. So that gave me freedom. That gave me the freedom to feel my way through it, to do what worked for me, and not listen to what they said, because I knew you don't know what you're talking about. You've never done this before. So I'm the one experiencing this, not you. You don't know. So I'm going to make my own decisions here. And again, 2 months later, running on the treadmill. Now, again, I hate running. I only did that in defiance of everybody who said I couldn't do it. But that drove me, that defiance drove me to say, screw you. You're not holding me back. That just simply isn't how my life is going to go.
That's beautiful. And that's exactly why the universe keeps crashing me, because the 20 years that I went through, there was no map. There was no, just like you said, there was no way that, I would shake like this. 2 years, I couldn't even get on the back of a commercial airliner. I couldn't even sit in the back. I had to get drunk just to sit in the back of it. Yeah. And that's how scared of flying I was. So I'm the son of a postman who got a little money to play football, got myself to college, was like working in the steel mills and, like doing whatever it took to get my ratings. And now I've worked all this way. And now I've been in this plane crash. It was an act of God, by the way. It was a deer that we hit on takeoff. I had no, it was nothing none of the plane crashes were my fault. I know it sounds terrible, but you're like, but it's the truth, man.
Right,
it's like,
right.
And that's my whole point about it. And it makes it even more epic about the crashes of life. A deer, a midair collision while refueling another airplane that ran into us in the back in the Air Force, a nose wheel steering fault box that totally took control of the airplane in Nashville, the Honda jet, the nose wheel just departing the airplane on late. It's just like, so my whole point is the crashes of life come big and small. And I give you these tools to combat them, because what I realized is I thought I was scared to fly for 2 years, Sloan. I couldn't even fly. And I thought I was scared to fly. But this is one of the tools I talk about, is so often we misdiagnose what we're actually dealing with, because I wasn't actually scared to fly. And I love Einstein, because Einstein talks about this. He said if he had 1 hour to solve a problem, he spends 55 minutes on the problem and 5 minutes on the solution. Where all of us other normal people that aren't like brilliant like Einstein spend 5 minutes on the problem, say, okay, this is the problem, and what can I do? And we just start throwing as much crap against the wall as we can until we think something sticks, right? Yeah. Well, it turned out I wasn't scared of flying. What do you think I was scared of?
Crashing.
Dying.
Exactly.
Literally, I came to, and I'm 23 years old. My face is ripped off. My whole nose is like literally ripped off. My nose ports are covered, like stuffed with mud. My mouth stuffed with mud. I'm suffocating. This doctor's got me pinned forward. My hands underneath the airplane. I have no fingernails. If you go to my website, moore motivated.com, you can see some pictures on there. But so they said I'd never have fingernails again. They grew back like one of those lizards, like a chameleon or whatever, And I got myself out, but I was afraid of dying. It was like, at 23 years old, I went through a midlife crisis. Really is what I could boil it down to, because I'm very simple in terms. So the whole time I'm over here thinking I'm afraid of flying. I'm data driven. I'm a math and science guy. I'm reading the statistics, this statistic, you get struck by lightning, crash an airplane. The chances, it's 1, and you have to fly every day for 14 million years to be in a plane crash. Well, that doesn't really work out in my story, does it?
Right.
I know I'm not 56 million years old or whatever, Right. So it's like, but I was so data driven, and that couldn't fix me. The light boards that the psychologists were trying to use couldn't fix me. So I had to actually come down and say, well, what's the problem here? Because you have to start asking questions like, why is this the problem? Well, because I'm a pilot and I need this to do so, this was my passion. I wanted to be an American Airlines pilot. Like, I'm just trying to